Explorers uncover a vessel entombed in polar frost. What they find inside defies belief. Part 1. The Discovery. Doctor had spent 15 years studying ice. She knew its secrets, its layers, and its stories. But nothing in her career had prepared her for what the ground radar showed that cold morning in Antarctica. The readings made no sense. Deep beneath the ice shelf, more than 50 meters down, something massive and solid sat waiting. It was not rock. It was not frozen earth. The shape was too perfect, too smooth, too clearly made by thinking hands. She called the team together in the main research tent. There were 12 of them, scientists from 6 different countries, sent to this frozen place to study climate patterns. Now they stood around her laptop, staring at the image on the screen. No one spoke for a long time. Finally, Dr. James, the geologist, broke the silence. "That cannot be natural," he said. His voice was barely above a whisper. "The angles are too clean. The curves are too regular. Whatever that is, someone built it." "The ice around it is at least 40,000 years old," replied. "Maybe older. We will need more tests to be sure. But if these readings are correct, that object has been down there since before humans learned to farm, since before we built cities or wrote words or sailed ships." The team argued through the night. Some wanted to report the finding immediately. Others worried about what might happen if the wrong people learned about it first. In the end, they agreed to dig. They would see what lay beneath the ice before they told the world. The work took 3 weeks. They used thermal drills and steam machines, cutting slowly through ancient ice that had not seen sunlight since the last great ice age. As they went deeper, the object grew clearer on their instruments. It was long and curved, shaped almost like a seed pod or a sleeping whale. The outer surface seemed to absorb their radar signals rather than bounce them back, which should have been impossible for any known material. On the 23rd day, they broke through into open space. The ice had formed a natural cave around part of the object, leaving a gap just large enough for a person to squeeze through. Was the first to go down. She wore a full suit with oxygen tanks and carried lights powerful enough to illuminate a football field. None of it prepared her for what she saw. The vessel was beautiful. There was no other word for it. The hull curved in ways that seemed to flow like water frozen in mid-motion. The surface was dark, darker than any metal had ever seen, yet it caught her lights and scattered them into soft patterns that danced across the ice walls. She reached out and touched it. The material was warm. After 40,000 years trapped in ice, it was warm. "I am at the object," she said into her radio. Her voice shook. "It is a vessel of some kind, a ship. The design is nothing I have ever seen, nothing like anything humans have ever built. I think we need to call this in." Within 48 hours, the quiet research station had become the most secured location on Earth. Military planes landed on the ice. Satellites shifted their orbits to watch from above. Scientists from every major nation arrived with equipment and questions. The tent village grew into a small city of metal structures and buzzing generators. Doctor, a linguist brought in from Oxford, spent days studying the symbols they found etched around what appeared to be a door. The marks did not match any human writing system, ancient or modern, but they were clearly language of some kind. Patterns repeated. Structures emerged. Whatever had built this vessel had been intelligent enough to write. "These are numbers," announced one evening. He pointed to a sequence of marks near the door frame. "Mathematical relationships, ratios. I think this might be instructions for opening the door." The builders assumed that anyone who found this would understand mathematics, even if they did not share a spoken language. It took another week to work out the sequence. When they finally activated the mechanism, the door did not slide or swing. Instead, it seemed to fold into itself, the solid material bending in ways that hurt the eyes to watch. Beyond it lay a corridor lit by a soft blue glow that came from nowhere and everywhere at once. Led the first team inside. The air was stale but breathable. The walls were covered with more symbols, and some of them moved, shifting and changing as they watched. Display screens, perhaps, or warnings they could not read. The corridor curved gently downward, leading deeper into the vessel. They found the crew in the main chamber. There were hundreds of them, sealed in pods that lined the walls from floor to ceiling. The pods were made of something like glass, clouded with frost but still clear enough to see the shapes inside. The beings were tall, much taller than humans, with long limbs and heads that seemed too large for their thin necks. Their skin was dark gray, almost black, and their eyes were closed in what looked like peaceful sleep. "They are in stasis," Doctor said. He had brought a portable scanner and was reading the results with hands that trembled. Some kind of suspended animation. Their cells are not dead, they are just stopped, waiting. "Waiting for what?" someone asked. Walk to a console in the center of the chamber. Like everything else on the ship, it responded to her touch, lighting up with symbols and images. One display showed a star map. Another showed what looked like a planet with two moons. A third showed something that made her blood run cold. It was Earth. Not the Earth she knew, but an older Earth, with different coastlines and vast ice sheets covering the northern lands. And in the image, small figures walked across an open plain. They were simple creatures, dressed in animal skins, carrying crude spears. They were human. Ancient humans, living and hunting on a world that did not yet know what wonders and horrors their children would create. The display changed. New symbols appeared and rushed forward to study them. His face went pale as he worked through the translation. "They were watching us," he said slowly. 40,000 years ago, they came to study the new intelligent life on this planet. They recorded everything. Our ancestors, our early tools, our first attempts at language. Then something went wrong with their ship. They crashed here and went into stasis, hoping someone would come to rescue them. He paused and swallowed hard. They have been waiting for rescue for 40,000 years. "No rescue came," said softly. "No," shook his head. "But they left a message, an automatic beacon designed to activate if their descendants did not arrive within a certain time. The message says..." He stopped and read the symbols again as if he could not believe his own translation. "The message says they are giving their data to whoever finds them, all of it. Their history, their science, their maps of the stars, everything they knew, a gift to the beings who came after them." Looked at the frozen figures in their pods, travelers from a distant star who had crossed the void of space to study the primitive creatures of Earth. They had expected to go home. They had expected their people to save them. Instead, they had slept through the entire rise of human civilization, from stone tools to starships of their own. And now, at last, someone had found them. Part 2: The Awakening. The world changed overnight. News of the discovery spread across every screen and speaker on the planet. People gathered in city squares and living rooms, watching the same footage play over and over. The dark vessel emerging from the ice, the strange symbols on its walls, the tall figures sleeping in their glass pods. Religions struggled to explain. Governments scrambled to control the story. Scientists dropped everything they were doing and begged for access to the site. At the Antarctic base, and her team worked without rest. The vessel's computer systems, once activated, proved willing to share everything they held. Terabytes of data poured out. Star charts showing thousands of worlds, technical plans for machines that seemed like magic, records of civilizations that had risen and fallen across the galaxy long before Earth's sun had finished forming. "They called themselves the Wanderers," explained during one of the daily briefings. His eyes were red from lack of sleep, but they burned with excitement. Their species evolved on a world circling a red star about 2,000 light-years from here. They spread across space over millions of years, building a civilization that spanned hundreds of systems. This ship was part of a survey mission, sent to catalog new worlds and study emerging life. "What happened to them?" asked Dr. Sarah Mitchell, the head of the biology team. "Why did no one come for the crew?" His face grew sad. "The records are not clear. The last updates in the system are from about 38,000 years ago. They mention a great crisis, a threat spreading through the core of their territory. Then nothing. The ship's beacon called out for help for 10,000 years before its power started to fail. Now it barely has enough energy to keep the crew in stasis. "Are you saying their entire civilization is gone?" asked. "I do not know, but if anyone survived out there, they have not answered the beacon in 40,000 years." The debate about what to do with the sleeping crew consumed the United Nations for weeks. Some argued that waking them was too dangerous. Others insisted that leaving intelligent beings frozen when they could be revived was wrong. In the end, the decision was made to wake one of them, carefully and slowly, under the watchful eyes of the world's best doctors. They chose the being in the first pod, the one nearest to what they believed was the control center. The ship's own systems guided the process, slowly warming the pod and adjusting the chemistry inside. It took 3 days. When the glass finally cleared and the creature inside opened its eyes, every screen on Earth showed the moment. The Wanderer was tall, nearly 3 meters when it finally stood. Its movements were slow and uncertain, like someone waking from a very long dream. Its eyes were large and golden, with pupils that shifted and changed as they adjusted to the light. When it saw the humans gathered around it, the creature went very still. Stepped forward. She had practiced this moment 1,000 times, working with to prepare a simple greeting in what they believed was the Wanderer's language. The words felt strange in her mouth, but she spoke them clearly. "Welcome, you are safe. We found your ship." The Wanderer stared at her for a long moment. Then it spoke, its voice deep and musical, shaped by a throat not meant for human sounds. The translation software they had built from the ship's records struggled to keep up. "How long?" the creature asked. "How long have I slept?" Felt her heart break a little. 40,000 of our years, perhaps more, we are not certain. The Wanderer closed its eyes. A sound came from its throat, something like a sigh and something like a song. When it opened its eyes again, they were wet with something that might have been tears. "My people, my home, are they?" "We do not know," admitted. "We have only just learned to leave our own world. We have not traveled far enough to find out what happened to your civilization. But your ship's records suggest that no one has answered your beacon for a very long time." The Wanderer stood in silence for what felt like hours. Then it looked around the room, studying the humans who watched it with fear and wonder. It looked at the equipment they had brought, the lights and cameras and medical machines. It looked at, small and fragile by its standards, dressed in a simple research suit. "You," it said slowly, "you are the creatures we came to study, the ones who had just learned to make fire and shape stone." "Yes, we have. Changed since then." "Changed?" The Wanderer made a sound that the translation software marked as laughter, though it sounded more like wind through hollow pipes. "When we landed on your world, you lived in caves and hunted with wooden spears. You had no writing, no metal, no cities. Our scientists argued about whether you would survive the next ice age. Some of them bet you would die out within 1,000 years." Felt a strange mix of pride and shame. "We nearly did a few times. We made many mistakes. We hurt each other and our world, but we survived." "You did more than survive." The Wanderer gestured at the walls, at the human technology that had been brought into the ancient ship. "You learned. You grew. You built machines that could find us and wake us. You did in 40,000 years what took my people 2 million. "We had help," said. "We found your ship's data. We have been learning from it." The Wanderer shook its great head. "You found the data 2 months ago. Your ships were already in the sky. Your machines were already talking to each other across your world. You built all of that yourselves from nothing, starting with fire and sharp rocks." It paused, and its golden eyes grew thoughtful. "We watched 1,000 species on 1,000 worlds. Most of them never learned to use tools at all. The ones that did usually took millions of years to reach the stars. Many destroyed themselves first. But you—" It trailed off, staring at as if seeing her for the first time. "What is your name?" it asked. "I am called something that would sound like Ra in your language. I would like to see what you have built. I would like to see what the cave dwellers became while I slept. Over the following months became Ra's guide to the human world. They traveled together, moving from city to city, country to country. The wanderer saw the great towers of glass and steel that rose above the streets of New York and Shanghai. It walked through museums filled with art and history, and the preserved bones of creatures that had died long before its ship ever landed. It watched children playing in parks, farmers working their fields, doctors healing the sick with medicines and machines. You fight each other, Ra observed after watching a news report about a war in a distant country. Even now, with all you have learned, you still kill your own kind. Yes, admitted, we are not perfect, we never claim to be. No species is perfect. My people had our own wars, our own cruelties, but we took 1,000,000 years to stop fighting among ourselves. You have had only 40,000 years since we saw you, and already most of you live in peace. Already you have laws against the worst violence and courts to enforce them. Already you work together across nations and languages to study the stars. We have a long way to go, said. You do, but you are going there faster than anyone imagined possible. Ra turned to look at her, and something like warmth filled its alien eyes. When I went into stasis, my people's scientists predicted that you might learn to write within 10,000 years. They thought metal tools would take you another 20,000. Space travel was not even considered. They assumed you would die out or stay primitive forever. Instead, it gestured at the sky, where a passenger jet was leaving a white trail against the blue. Instead, you fill the air with flying machines, and the ground with roads, and the oceans with ships. You send your voices through the air and your images through light. You have split the atom and walked on your moon, all in less time than it takes a glacier to move a mile. Did not know what to say. She had never thought about humanity this way, as something remarkable rather than flawed. I would like to speak to your leaders, Ra said. All of them together. I have something to tell them about what they are and what they might become. Part 3. The Inheritance. The General Assembly of the United Nations had never seen a speaker like this. Ra stood at the podium, its tall form draped in a simple gray robe that had helped it choose. The golden eyes swept across the hall, taking in the hundreds of faces that watched with fear, hope, and wonder. Every seat was filled. Every screen in the world carried the image. I have been shown your world, Ra began. The translation device at its throat turned the musical tones into clear English, which was then translated into dozens of other languages for the delegates. I have seen your cities and your farms, your hospitals and your schools. I have read your history and studied your arts. I have watched your people argue and fight and make peace again. And I must tell you something that your own kind rarely seems to understand. The hall was silent. Even the diplomats, trained to keep their faces blank, leaned forward. You are remarkable, Ra said. Not perfect, not even close to perfect, but remarkable in ways that my people never expected. It touched a control on the podium, and a holographic display appeared in the air above the assembly. Stars glittered, connected by thin lines that marked the routes of ancient wanderer ships. My people traveled the galaxy for millions of years. We found thousands of worlds where life had taken hold. On some of them, that life had learned to think, to plan, to dream. We watched these species, studied them, kept records of their progress or their failure. The display shifted, showing different planets, different creatures. Most of them are gone now. Some died out when their stars grew old. Some destroyed themselves with weapons or pollution or simple foolishness. A few made it to the stars, but slowly, over millions of years, moving at the pace that seemed natural for thinking creatures. The display changed again, showing Earth. The blue-green planet hung in the dark, beautiful and alone. When we came here, you were nothing special. A species of clever apes who had learned to walk upright and make simple tools. Our scientists gave you low odds of survival. They thought the next ice age would probably kill you off, or that you would simply stay primitive forever, trapped in a cycle of hunting and gathering until your son died. Ra paused, and something that might have been a smile crossed its strange face. They were wrong. Wonderfully, impossibly wrong. In 40,000 years, a single heartbeat in the life of a galaxy, you went from sharpened stones to nuclear power, from cave paintings to worldwide networks of instant communication, from looking at the moon and wondering to actually walking on its surface and coming home again. The hologram showed humanity's progress. The first cities rising, the first ships crossing oceans, the first planes taking flight, the first rockets reaching for the stars. You did this without help. You had no records of older civilizations to guide you, no technology left behind by earlier travelers. Everything you built with your own hands and minds. Every discovery, every invention, every breakthrough came from your own struggle and curiosity. The Wanderer's voice grew stronger, filling the great hall. Do you understand how rare this is? Most species take hundreds of thousands of years to discover fire. You did it in a few generations. Most species need millions of years to develop writing. You created it in less than 10,000. The average time from first tools to space flight among the species we studied was 4 million years. You did it in less than 1% of that time. Murmurs ran through the assembly. Sitting in the gallery, felt tears on her cheeks and did not know when they had started. I have heard your leaders speak of humanity's problems, Ra continued. Your wars, your inequality, your damage to your own world. These are real concerns and you are right to address them. But you should also know this. Every species that reaches for the stars goes through this stage. The difference is how quickly you are moving through it. The display showed a timeline, comparing humanity's progress to other species the Wanderers had studied. My own people took 2 million years to stop fighting among ourselves. You have had organized peacekeeping efforts for less than a century, and already most of your world lives without fear of invasion or conquest. We took 3 million years to develop medicines that could cure our worst diseases. You are closing in on that same goal in mere thousands. The pace of your change is unlike anything we ever recorded. Ra raised one long arm, pointing at the assembled delegates. You ask me why I wanted to speak to you all. The reason is simple. My people may be gone. Our great civilization, our cities among the stars, may have fallen to whatever crisis we faced 40,000 years ago. But we left behind everything we knew. Our science, our history, our maps of the galaxy. All of it is stored in the ship that your scientists found in the ice. The hall erupted. Delegates shouted questions. Security guards tensed, gripped the railing in front of her. Ra waited for the noise to die down, patient as only a being who had slept for 40,000 years could be. I am offering you this knowledge, it said, all of it, not because you need it to survive. You have proven that you can advance on your own, faster than any species we ever encountered. I am offering it because you have earned it, because you clawed your way up from nothing through pure determination, because you found our ship, figured out our language, woke me from my sleep, and asked how you could help rather than what you could take. The Wanderer's golden eyes swept the hall once more. The galaxy is very old and it is mostly empty. The species that once filled it are gone, fallen to time and disaster and their own mistakes. But the galaxy is also very large, and somewhere out there, new life is beginning. New minds are learning to think and dream and wonder about the stars. Ra turned to look up in the gallery, and for a moment it seemed like they were the only two beings in the room. My people were caretakers once. We watched over the young species, helped them when we could, recorded their stories even when they failed. We wanted the galaxy to be full of life and thought and wonder. We wanted every world to have its chance. Its voice dropped, growing soft but still carrying to every corner of the hall. We may be gone, but you are here. And you are the fastest, most stubborn, most impossibly determined species we ever found. If anyone can carry on our work, if anyone can reach out to the young minds scattered across the stars, it is you. Ra stepped back from the podium. The knowledge is yours. Use it wisely. And when you find the next young species learning to make fire on some distant world, remember that you were once like them. Remember that someone once looked down at your ancestors and wondered if they would survive. And then prove, as you have proven to me, that humanity does not just survive. Humanity thrives. The hall erupted in applause. Delegates rose to their feet. Some were crying, some were laughing, some simply stared at the alien figure with something like awe. Watched from the gallery as history changed. She thought about her grandmother, who had grown up in a small village without electricity. She thought about the first humans who had learned to shape stone into tools, never imagining what their descendants would become. She thought about the vast darkness between the stars, waiting to be crossed. And she thought about the other sleeping wanderers, still waiting in their pods beneath the Antarctic ice. They would wake soon, to a galaxy that had moved on without them. They would grieve for their lost civilization, their dead friends, their vanished world. But they would also see what humanity had built, and they would know that the flame they had tried to carry had not gone out. It had simply been passed to new hands. Outside the United Nations building, crowds had gathered to watch the speech on giant screens. When Ra finished, they cheered so loudly that the sound carried through the walls. Children sat on their parents' shoulders, waving at the alien figure on the screens. Old men and women wept openly, remembering a time when the moon was just a distant light in the sky. Made her way down from the gallery and through the crowd until she reached Ra's side. The wanderer looked tired but peaceful, its ancient eyes bright with something that needed no translation. "That was beautiful," she said. "It was true," Ra replied, "and it needed to be said. Your people spend so much time talking about their failures that they forget to notice their victories. What happens now?" The wanderer looked out at the crowd, at the city beyond, at the sky that had once seemed so impossibly far away. "Now you do what you have always done. You learn, you grow, you reach for things that seem impossible and make them real." It placed one long hand on shoulder, gentle despite its size. "And I will help for as long as I am able, because for the first time in 40,000 years I have hope." Looked up at the alien who had once watched her ancestors hunting with wooden spears. She thought about all the years between then and now, all the struggles and triumphs and moments when everything could have gone wrong. And she smiled. "We will not let you down," she said. Above them the stars were waiting. They had always been waiting. And now, at last, humanity was ready to answer their call.